top 5 games of 2012. Now all these I'm going to put my own gameplay in for you this year. Last year I just showed you cases, but this year I'm going to, as I've got my capture card now, I'll show you gameplay of each game. And before I want to start, I'm going to give you literally about a minute of just saying that these are all my personal choice of games. These aren't games that, your favourite games. They're not IGN's, Machinima's favourite games. Then my best game isn't the game of the year. These are my games of the year. These are my top 5 games. And before I get on to second and first place, I will have another chat like this, but only for like 5 seconds. And bear in mind as well, just quickly, bear in mind that I haven't played every game that's out, so I can't exactly put in. I mean, even if I might enjoy a game if I played it. If I haven't played it yet, I can't put it in the list. So please bear that in mind. But anyway. So, in 5th place is Sleeping Dogs. Now this amazing game was made by Square Enix, and it is basically like GTA kind of thing. It's I'm not really too fond of GTA, but I mean, this is basically GTA, but I mean everything's been improved. You can jump out of cars onto another car and then go inside it. It's not as much gunning as you would have thought. It's more kung fu kind of thing. There is gun combat, but there isn't much. The story is very good. I felt the story was really good. I wouldn't say it was an amazing story. I think this game went through its world and its gameplay. I think that's really what drove the game through. But the story wasn't terrible. It was a really decent story. So it was a really good game, and that is why it's in my top 5 games. The graphics, although it doesn't matter, they're pretty good graphics, to be honest. I mean, for a game, they're good graphics. And the character, you kind of got to feel for the character. I did really like the character. You really get to get a feel with him. I realise how bad that sounded, but please just forgive me there. You really get, he's not a bland character. He's a good character, and you kind of see as how he feels as the story goes along, how his true feelings come out. So it's a really good game. I highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out. And in 4th place is Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 3. Now this obviously was the 3rd game in the Mass Effect series, following Commander Shepard for the 3rd time, and it was his final chapter. Now there's a lot to talk about Mass Effect, but I'll try to pull it into a very short amount of time. The gameplay has been really well improved over the others. It's a fantastic game. As I said, the gameplay's been improved. The story I feel was fantastic. I mean, several times you really felt for Shepard and also his companions that he had with him. There were some moments that you really kind of, I suppose some of some people would really kind of want to cry. I mean, I never cried, but there are some heartbreaking scenes in the game, which and also if you played the previous games, I've Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, and then you import your save, it changes slightly how the outcome of the story. Doesn't change the ending, but they said it would. BioWare said it would, but it doesn't change. It does change some of the stories. Like you could get a character coming in, which could prevent something. For example, which if you didn't have that character, or if you didn't port the save, it wouldn't happen. So I mean, I would recommend you definitely, if you want to even check out Mass Effect 3, I would recommend checking out all the Mass Effects beforehand. And if you've got a PS3 now, I'd recommend getting the trilogy, because that's the only physical copy you can get of the first game. But sorry, but it's a fantastic game, and I highly recommend it. The ending, in my opinion, yes, it was a terrible ending, but I do feel that BioWare kind of redeemed himself by making a DLC, which does improve the ending. So I mean, they've got credit. You got to give them credit for they're loyal to their fans. So they've done something like that. I mean, it proves that they really care, and they're not going to just let out something come out if people don't like it. So anyway, it was a really fantastic game. I highly recommend it. There are it's an open world, so there are 1 or 2 bugs, but aside from that, I mean, it's not like game breaking. There's not much. There is a few frame rate drops and texture pop-ins, but aside from that, the game runs brilliantly. So we'll go on to 3rd place now. So, in 3rd place, it is Dishonored. One of the later released games this year. Dishonored is a sorry, I'm choking a bit here. Dishonored is a stealth game. But what I really like about this game is that you don't exactly have to play it stealthy. It is designed as a stealth game, but you don't have to. You can just run in, all guns blazing, get like everything like that. You can go through the game without killing anyone, and you can get trophies for not killing anybody. You can get trophies for not being seen, or achievements or whatever. And it's just so many different ways to play it, and you have you can get different powers, which you can't get all the powers, but that's a good thing, because you can't get all the powers. You have to kind of use them wisely on what you want, what you exactly you want to use for your character to help you get through the main missions. The story was pretty good actually. I did really enjoy the story, and it's just got like but the only real problem with the game altogether, well, aside from a couple of texture pop-ins, which is very slight, but there are a few texture pop-ins. The only real problem I had with the game was it was a bit too short for me. It was quite short. I mean, I completed it in about 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours. It took me to complete the game, which is nothing really at all. 6 to 8 hours is just not good enough for a game. No matter how good the game is, I mean, this game could have been much higher if it actually, or maybe not exactly much higher, but maybe would have been. I would have preferred it. It might have stood a chance of second place if they made it a bit longer, because I mean, I think there's about 6 chapters or something, and each chapter takes just over an hour to complete. Depending how you play it as well. It's not a good size for game, but but what you have got is fantastic, and I'm sure that they've got the Dunwall challenge packs up already, which include new missions. Sorry, I keep coughing here. And they do have they will probably release more DLCs, possibly to put in extra missions, which could make the game longer. Which, if they can do that, fantastic. I mean, Dishonored is most likely going to be a new genre, so I'm looking forward to seeing the future games if they do make any, and to see how they make improvements in the future, because this was a new IP. So yeah, we'll go now. I just need to talk a little bit about first and second place before I go on to them both. So anyway, before I go on to first and second place, I just want to say firstly that I found it incredibly hard to choose which one would take first place, because I mean, I enjoy these games so much, and I mean, even now I could doubt myself and change my mind, but I don't think I'll ever be sure which one I preferred more, because in my opinion both these great games just had pretty much, they just blew me away this year, and I thought these were 2 great releases. One, a very well known game, the other not very well known at all, but both games were fantastic, I thought, and I'm not sure. I think the game I put in second place hasn't received any Game of the Year nominations at all. I don't think. So I mean, not many people know about this game, but I mean, before I just want to go and say, I mean, I had to cut it down to very, very strict. Very strict. I had to be very strict on the games. I mean, things like graphics had to matter. That's how close they were to my, to how much I liked them. So I mean, we'll go on then now to second place. And so, in second place is Dragon's Dogma. This RPG made by Capcom is a Western RPG, but made by a Japanese company. I mean, I'm not sure if this has happened much before, but the result was fantastic, and we've already been confirmed that there's going to be new games as well, and apparently only 60% of the developers' ideas went into this game, which is extraordinary. For a game, because I mean, I thought this game had quite a lot. The gameplay was just fantastic. The gameplay was just, I mean, I couldn't believe it. It was possibly the best gameplay I've seen in an RPG ever. Graphics were quite poor. I wouldn't say, I mean, again, I'm not too judgmental on graphics, but at this point I had to matter. But I'm not too judgmental on graphics, but if you like a good looking game, the game wasn't brilliant on graphics. Character creation, it was good on some matters, but in some ways it was bad. I mean, the character creation, the hairstyles weren't all good enough. I mean, there were some hairstyles which, I mean, and it doesn't really matter at some points, some people won't care, but some might. some of the hairstyles, they didn't have enough variation. It was mostly long and very short. There was no middle kind of length to it, and there was beards were quite poor as well. I mean, you know, very bad beards in my opinion. And again, this might be a bit weird me ranting about beards, but I mean, the beards were not the greatest. However, on the plus side, you could do things that, you know, in most RPGs they don't include. Like you could choose your character's celerity, his height, his weight, you know, his different things like that. You could just do it. As how he stood, his gesture, his voice. Although your character never talks, so it's a bit weird. And you know, things like that. And then they also had the pawn system, which you made your own pawn. And you could go online, and then basically that was part of an online community, and your pawns could be borrowed by other people, and you could borrow other people's pawns, because you have 3 pawns on your team. 1 is your main pawn, which you always have to have with you, and 2 optional pawns which you can have from other people, so other people's main pawn from the Rift, or you can have, or you can just make get your own pawn from the game in-game, which isn't on someone else's, on in-game pawns. But the game was just fantastic. Story was slightly forgettable, which was a big problem with it. The story was slightly forgettable. Like you were going on doing this thing, then you just found yourself doing something else, and you don't brace. You didn't know why you were doing it, and you just think, why am I doing this? You know, I'm meant to be doing this. Why am I finding myself doing this? That was the main problem. But the bosses as well. The bosses were fantastic. I think the bosses are the best part of the game because they've all got weak points. There's always something you can do to defeat them, and they're all completely unique. And the final boss was fantastic. And the ending of the game, the last 3 hours was fantastic, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, the game has some extra DLC along the way, a lot of free ones, including they're actually putting a hard mode as well and an easy mode. The game was released with 1 difficulty, and that was medium. But I mean, it was quite still classed as a hardcore game, and originally I found it hard until I got used to it. And when you get used to it, I mean, I might go on now and play it on hard because I feel I'm ready to take it onto that difficulty. But if you're a new player to the game, you might want to check it on easy difficulty. So I mean, they've added some things in that are quite good. And the final thing I'm going to say about this game, one of the biggest criticisms I have about it, only 1 game save, which is terrible. For an RPG, you want to have more than 1 game save. 1 game save is not enough for a game. But I mean, you know, hopefully they will improve that for the next game. So anyway, we're now big number 1. And so, in first place is Assassin's Creed 3. Now, you can all call me fanboy, whatever you want. Assassin's Creed 3 was my favourite game this year, and I was not putting fanboyism at all into it. The gameplay was beyond anything I've seen from any Assassin's Creed game, and it really pushed the boundaries of this current generation to the limits, in my opinion. The facial expressions on Connor as well, and when he was in combat. There was I think there are some negativity points. I will go into them after I've talked about the positives. The story was. I felt the story was actually fantastic. I mean, Desmond's ending was disappointing at first, but when I looked it up, I understood it a bit more. And it's kind of thing. You'll play the ending, you'll say, "What just happened?" You just go on the internet, guys, and look up the ending, and it will tell you some about it. Because it makes more sense if you watch a video about it. Although I was quite upset with the ending of Desmond's anyway, not spoiling anything, I felt Connor's story was fantastic. How it was from, it goes from this young boy from the embers of his burning village to a full-grown assassin, master assassin. And he would risk nothing, and he risks everything to get to make peace and that kind of thing. And although Connor I felt was quite a bland character, I think this was more to the voice actor than the company. Because I mean, when I think back at it, and I played this game 4 times now. I mean, I've only just completed it for my 4th time now, and when I do go through it, I feel, yeah, this is they've done good, Ubisoft have, but the voice actor, in my opinion, just doesn't do a good job. I mean, I would really say to put all the criticism on the voice actor, not Ubisoft, because I feel that the character was meant to be quite good. And you know, I mean, the only time you actually felt for Connor was at the very beginning, and I'm not going to say what happened, of course, but I mean that was a very big problem with the game. How, you know, the voice acting of Connor, but the rest of the voice acting was fantastic. And then, you know, after that you have your homestead missions, you've got your liberation missions, you've got the naval missions, and the naval missions are fantastic. The abilities to, you know, to steer your own ship and in combat. I mean, I don't think anyone's done that before, as far as I know, in a game, using a ship. So I mean, and especially to have been like one of the first people to do it, and to make it that good is fantastic. And it all fits together brilliantly. The hunting is fantastic. I enjoyed the hunting a lot. You know, just going out and hunting. You know, this game has got hours and hours and hours of content inside in it. I mean, if you did everything, it'd probably take you probably about 40 to 50 hours to complete. You know, and then you can just do what you want. You're running around, you know, stabbing people whenever you want to, and that's a really good thing. And you know, they've included the tree climbing. Once you got the hang of it, it was really fluid, it all worked. They simplified the controls so you didn't have to click X and R1 at the same time. So I mean, in my opinion, although people say negative things about this game, I thought it was fantastic. And as a long-term Assassin's Creed fan, I do think it was by far the best game. And to prove I played it 4 times and still enjoying the hell out of it, proves that I'm not a fanboy of the game, I think, because I enjoyed it all 4 times. I've played the game. Now, the one big criticism I have about the game, and I have mentioned about Connor already, was when the game was released, it was just smashed with bugs. You know, the game, I wouldn't call it game breaking. You know, I survived the first week of Skyrim on the PS3, so I mean, if I survive that, I can survive this. But either way, you know, you've got to really be strict on the glitches. I mean, when you release a game, you expect 1 or 2 glitches, but not that amount. And I know there's been worse, but either way, you know, they should have patched some of the things up. I mean, I had a glitch when at the end of the game, I put on a different skin, and the person kept falling through the floor if I used that skin, and they patched that up now, and they have patched quite a bit up, but there's still things like texture popping that pop up a lot of texture popping, and people still falling through the floor, not as much as before. I've had grass growing in, you know, there's been grass in buildings, you know, all that sort of thing. So, you know, it wasn't exactly the most, you know, the most stable game, but it was still in my opinion, it was still a very, very good game. And that is why that gets my Game of the Year this year. So anyway, really, that is it. Now, please, guys, if you want to leave a subscribe and a like, I really appreciate that. You want to comment on what your favourite game was this year, why it was, or if you want to ask what I like about these games, or why I would recommend them. You know, you're also welcome to any questions. I will try my best to answer them, and I will see you next year for my next Game of the Year, and it'll be of 2013. So I'll see you then, guys.